Lil' Kim, don't fuck around with real G's, quick to snatch your ugly ass off the street.
I don't know how to be responsible for what every black male did. I don't know.
Slide, I wrote poetry, kept a diary, I watched TV.
Tupac didn't die the way everyone thinks he did. Few people know that the entire world has been deceived for nearly 30 years. But a secret never before told a confession about the case finally came to light. There's something hidden in Tupac's death, and the truth might haunt you forever. After 29 years, Tupac's biological father has spoken out for the first time, revealing shocking truths and raising a series of questions. Why hasn't the media been given a clear explanation in nearly 30 years? Why is the truth only being revealed now? And more importantly, what mysteries still remain hidden? In this case, what he revealed completely turned everything upside down. A nightmare Tupac fans had never imagined. Before we begin our journey to decode Tupac's final secret, prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear will change your perspective on the entertainment industry. 1. The House of Fire and the Last Bullet. If you hear the name Vanderbilt family these days, you'll picture street-long mansions, Rolls-Royce cars, and the name of American old money. But in the 70s and 80s, the name Shakur took on an entirely opposite meaning. Not associated with wealth, but with the FBI's secret files. If the Vanderbilts were a symbol of power and wealth, the Shakurs were a symbol of rebellion and government fear. One side was invited to be on the cover of Forbes magazine, while the other was named on the federal wanted list. Tupac Shakur was born into a family whose faces the FBI knew by heart. His mother, Afeni Shakur, was a member of the Black Panther Party, an organization once considered the greatest threat to national security. She was arrested with the Panther 21 group, facing over 150 counts of conspiracy to overthrow the government while pregnant with Tupac. If you had to find a woman with the intellect and strength to rival today's Gloria Allred or Kamala Harris, it would be Afeni. But unlike them, they don't have the media behind them, carrying an unborn child alone and facing the entire US government. In an era when black women had no voice, Afeni transformed herself into a thunderclap. She's not just smart, she's dangerous, exactly as the FBI noted in her confidential file. Have you ever wondered how a child born in such a storm will grow up? Tupac absorbed that spirit, the instinct to dare and challenge. As he grew up, he didn't choose the path his parents had taken, but he carried within him the heat of that rebellion. He didn't hold a banner like them, but a microphone. Instead of taking to the streets to protest, they took to the stage. And instead of writing a revolutionary manifesto, you wrote rap lyrics. What society sees as street entertainment, Tupac turned into a weapon of consciousness. When he spoke, the crowd fell silent. When he was silent, the press wondered what was about to explode. His music is so powerful that it transcends artistic boundaries, directly challenging ideology and leaving authorities unable to ignore it. He not only represents the West Coast, but another America, the America of anger of the oppressed. For black people, Tupac wasn't an idol. He was a saint who spoke through rhythm and rhyme proof that a person of color could enter the mainstream without losing their soul. But to the authorities, Tupac was a hungry tiger, waiting for the day he would be released from his cage. From the moment the 1996 masterpiece album All Eyes on Me exploded and broke all sales records, the spotlight was no longer the only thing following Tupac. The security agency began recording every sentence he said, every word he rapped, and every place he went. In the public eye, he was the biggest star on the West Coast. But in the eyes of the authorities, he was a revolutionary disguised by rap music. Just as his career was reaching its peak, everyone thought this would be a happy ending, but it turned out to be the light that led to Tupac's heartbreaking tragedy. On September 7, 1996, on Flamingo Road in Las Vegas, Tupac was traveling in a black BMW with Marion Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records. Suddenly, a white Cadillac sped toward the right. In just a few seconds, 4 shots rang out, tearing through the air and taking Tupac's life. After 6 days of battling death, he breathed his last at the age of 25, the most beautiful age in a person's life. Tupac's death not only shook the world, it left a deep crack in the history of music and justice. But the closer you look, the more incomprehensible cuts that death reveals. From the moment the shooting occurred to the way investigators reacted to the unusual behavior of Mother Afeni Shakur, everything paints an incomplete picture, as if someone is deliberately trying to hide the final piece of the puzzle. Tupac's death sparked controversy worldwide as if it were a live reality show. Some treasures, if they're lost, just let them be, leave people alone. Right, if he just rolled over from old age or illness, No one would bother asking questions like the FBI or a gossip column. But this is the legendary hip-hop artist Tupac. He was already a public figure, so people were interested in what he ate, what he wore, or where he went, let alone when he passed away. However, that curtain is gradually being lifted. In a rare interview, Tupac's biological father, Billy Garland, broke the mystery. He recounted a detail, a piece of the puzzle that, if true, would completely upend the entire story of Tupac. And that's exactly what you need to hear next. 2. 29 years of secrecy. The secret the FBI doesn't want you to know. Some people say Tupac is still alive. Some people swear they saw you in Cuba. But what if it's not just a rumor? What if the entire assassination was just a plan, orchestrated by men in suits, not street thugs? Nearly 3 decades later, America still hasn't been able to answer who was involved in Tupac's death. The white Cadillac with 4 people inside and not one of them pleading guilty. Keefe D., the only surviving member, only said half-heartedly, Orlando Anderson might have pulled the trigger. But maybe is never enough for an assassination in the heart of Las Vegas. Dozens of witnesses, hundreds of cameras, but no verdict. It was as if someone wanted the case to fade into obscurity forever, while the public was busy debating whether Tupac was a gang victim or a political pawn deliberately eliminated. According to leaked information, Tupac and Orlando Anderson had a confrontation. Not on stage, but right in front of the gate of their private home. They argued, raised their voices, and Tupac shouted, "I'm going to kill you, you bastard." A heated remark, but also the spark for everything that was to come. Immediately, the crowd began to move away, leaving the two of them in privacy. But this is not the conclusion for all hypotheses about Tupac's death. Her biological father, Billy Garland, revealed a detail that shattered all speculation. Just a month before that fateful night, Tupac actively sought him out in a meeting so strange, it haunted Billy for the rest of his life. No anger, no blame, no talk of the future. He only talked about the past, about his mother, his friends, and the music he wanted to leave behind. Calmly, decisive. That action aligns with a psychological trend when people face the brink of life and death. They often cherish family, want to make peace with everything, and resolve conflicts even if they were previously as serious as the heavens and the earth. Tupac clearly chose this moment to clear away any thorns before he left. At that time, your father didn't understand. But now, as everything comes to light, people shudder to wonder, did Tupac know the day he would die? Had he realized the eyes that were watching him, the invisible hands that were slowly closing the circle? And worse, you yourself actively chose to end the play the way they wanted. Looking at his mother's actions, Tupac Shakur, the horror increased tenfold. Immediately after Tupac passed away, she immediately ordered the body to be cremated, forbade any attempts at resuscitation, no autopsy, and no independent investigation. Reason: I don't want my child to suffer anymore. But if Tupac knew beforehand, and his mother knew too, what if they built an escape together? A perfect play for him to step out of the spotlight, to withdraw from a world that has treated him like a money-making tool. Because remember, Tupac wasn't an ordinary person. He has money, power, and connections. After such a perfect performance, he could easily disappear. A man who made the entire United States believe in the impossible. Couldn't he hide, get plastic surgery, change his identity, and live a different life? With a mind like Tupac's, dying to live again was probably just part of a larger plan he once wrote in his rap lyrics, "Only God can judge me now." No one noticed this detail in the song "I Ain't Mad at Cha," released just 2 weeks before he was shot. Tupac plays a recently deceased spirit watching his friends continue to live. The video ends with him falling, white light enveloping him, and then disappearing. He recreated his own death before it happened. Not a prophecy, but a plan. Putting everything together, all the scattered pieces suddenly fit together in an eerie way. Why didn't the family reopen the investigation when the death was so suspicious? Why was Afeni, the mother who once stood up to the entire US government, completely silent? Why did you rush to cremate your son's body that very night without a ceremony or even a final look? And why did Billy Garland, the biological father, disappear at the very last moment before the ashes were swept away? Everything is like a perfect play. But who is the real director? If that wasn't a coincidence, then Tupac never died. The fake death scenario explains everything why the investigation was closed so strangely quickly, why no one ever saw the body, and why 29 years later people still hear his voice echoing in Havana, Jamaica, or in unreleased recordings. Tupac was not a victim. He was the author of his own death. A genius foresaw the downfall of fame and chose to disappear to live freely. A symbol that knows that in this world only the dead find peace while the living will forever be controlled. And if that's true, then all the questions that have haunted America for 3 decades are just old movies. 3. Beneficiary profit theory and posthumous branding. Tupac's death was not just the loss of an artist, it was a commercial turning point. Immediately after Tupac took his last breath, what happened in the music and entertainment market revealed a cold reality: the dead can still become more powerful money-making machines than ever. Over the next 20 years, no fewer than 7 posthumous Tupac albums were released, breaking all sales records and transforming the name Tupac from a music legend into an immortal, endlessly profitable brand. This is no longer pure music, but a phenomenon: the commercialization of death. Looking closely, this development is not random at all. Each posthumous album, each remix, each music video collection is exploited in a calculated manner. Producers, record labels, and even estate fund managers all became direct beneficiaries of Tupac's loss. They know that when a legend passes away, brand value increases exponentially because the sense of permanence makes fans eager and willing to spend money. What's the drama here? They didn't just take away the music, they turned death itself into a product. Stories about Tupac on stage, in the studio, or unfinished rap lyrics are controlled, edited, and sold for commercial value. You could say they kill the legend, then sell the legend. The Tupac brand has outlived the real person. His image is used in films, video games, advertisements, and even in NFT collections, all measured in terms of profit, musical legend or commercial product. The boundaries are now blurred to a terrifying degree. But within this commercial drama, the family story also reveals equally intense conflicts. Tupac's family, particularly his sister Tupac Shakur, has repeatedly spoken out about the lack of transparency in the estate fund and the failure to disclose how Tupac's image and music are being exploited. American media, including Fox News, previously reported on lengthy lawsuits seeking control and transparency in the release of post-mortem products. These disputes aren't just about money, they're about the right to tell Tupac's story, about who truly controls his legacy. Shakur once said, "My brother doesn't need a monument, he needs the right to tell his story." That statement startled the listeners as it touched upon a painful truth. Tupac not only lost his life, but also lost control over the narrative about himself. His death, from the family's perspective, is contested territory, where commerce, profit, and power overlap. Looking at the bigger picture, this phenomenon isn't unique to Tupac. Music history shows that artists like Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, or more recently Juice WRLD, whose deaths became tools for profit exploitation. While the artist is alive, they have control. After death, this power is almost completely stripped away, replaced by corporations, producers, and estate managers. Death becomes a brand, and the brand turns into money. An economic analysis, profit theory, shows that entertainment companies understand consumer behavior. Well, fans are willing to pay the highest price for what they cannot own for lost memories and legends. Therefore, the exploitation of unreleased music, re-releasing old albums, making documentaries, or using Tupac's image in advertisements are all calculated based on the public's eternal desire. They don't sell music, they sell the idea of immortality. From a legal perspective, the disputes over the Heritage Fund also reveal deep-seated conflicts. Who has the right to decide on posthumous products? Who is the guardian of spiritual heritage, not just revenue? When large companies take control, the artists' families are often left with only a limited voice. This is a form of commercial violence where the death of Tupac, a human being, is transformed into an inanimate asset. But the drama didn't stop there. The Tupac brand, thanks to posthumous albums, has become a cultural machine, from clothing, accessories, and posters to video games and memorial events. Fans buy and remember, but these products themselves also mean recreating death in the way brand managers want. The image of Tupac being controlled, every gesture, every song, carefully selected, creating an eternal Tupac in the way they wanted. No longer a real person, but a valued legend. Another perspective, Tupac's death was also an opportunity for those who exploit political music and black culture to exploit. The rap lyrics, images, and personal stories all were utilized sometimes beyond the family's control, transforming Tupac into an icon, but not always for the message he intended to convey. This semi-mythical status has led many to question, does the legend live in the hearts of the public, or does it only exist in contracts and revenue figures? Bringing all of this into a final question, we are forced to look reality in the face. When death becomes a product, who is death really Tupac? The artist, the hero, or just a brand? And who are the ones backstage controlling every detail, turning tragedy into profit, who are truly the ultimate beneficiaries? In this scenario, personal tragedy intertwines with commercial drama. A person dies, but their name lives on longer, more powerfully and more profitably than anyone else still alive around them. Death is no longer a loss, but a business miracle where those who control the new legacy are the winners. From this perspective, all the disputes about control, about the right to tell the story about posthumous releases, are not just legal or family conflicts. They are proof that Tupac died as a human being, but the Tupac brand survives independently, powerfully, and profitably far beyond anyone's imagination. And that's what's chilling. Tupac's death wasn't just the passing of a person. It was the beginning of an immortal brand where legend and profit merged into one. Looking back, we have to ask ourselves who really benefited from Tupac's death fans' family record labels? Or has death itself packaged as a product become the most powerful brand? And the answer, cold but accurate, the ultimate beneficiary is the market itself, where death is measured in sales and perpetuated by profit. 4. Mercy Theory, the enigma in the final act. On September 13, 1996, the hospital room where Tupac Shakur was brought still smelled of antiseptic, and the cold white light shone directly onto the hospital bed. The IV line flowed silently, the needle bobbing with the weak rhythm of a body struggling between life and death. A bead of sweat rolled down Tupac's forehead, mingling with a silent tear from the person standing beside him. Not an anonymous nurse, but Afeni Shakur, the mother who once defied the entire U.S. government, now facing a moment that even her spiritual strength couldn't overcome. 29 years later, Marion Sujay Knight's testimony to EW.com exploded with a new perspective. Afeni gave Tupac drugs and instructed doctors not to resuscitate him when he was unconscious after the shooting. These words, spoken nearly 3 decades later, echo like a cold whisper in a story already thick with mystery. This action, if true, is not just a detail in the death record, it is the trigger for an alternative theory, a hypothesis that the public has long dared only to suspect. Let's temporarily forget about the headlines, old articles, and rumors. Put yourself in that moment, a mother standing before her son who had just survived 8 gunshots in the heart of Las Vegas, a son who had carried a rebellious spirit power and intelligence within him his entire life. Was her action maternal love, or a strategy to protect the legacy of a hip-hop icon that the whole world was watching? Psychology shows that when faced with the brink of life and death, people tend to look back at their families and try to resolve any final misunderstandings. They want to make peace to finish what's left unfinished. Tupac once used a moment a month before his fateful night to talk to his father about the past, about his mother, and about the music he wanted to leave behind. That action combined with Sujay Knight's words led to a chilling but logical hypothesis. Afeni was not just a mother, she was the key to Tupac's final journey. From a legal and medical perspective, this action is an ethical mess. In the context of a doctor facing a seriously injured patient after a shooting refusing resuscitation, could be considered a crime. But if placed in a private context under the eyes of a mother who had fought the system, who knew the price of fame and death before being protected, that action could be interpreted differently. This was salvation, a way for Tupac to leave in the least painful way, protecting him from invisible hands ready to manipulate his identity, money, and power. In contrast to the maternal perspective is the strategic perspective. Afeni was not just a mother. She understood the symbolic value of Tupac. Each shot fired each rap verse, each public gaze formed a strange web where Tupac's fame was turned into a tool. In that world, letting go of a son gently also meant protecting a legacy that no one had the right to violate. Afeni's actions could be a subtle choice between 2 extremes, letting Tupac die naturally or preventing the system from manipulating his death. The silent tears in the hospital room reflected all of this. There was no script, no dialogue, just tears standing still amidst the white lights and the indifferent conveyor belt. but they tell a story that sometimes love and power, salvation and control are defined in the same action. And here's the trick that no one can ignore. When a mother decides to cremate her child's body that night, it could be a release or a silent sentence. It was in that silence that the mercy theory was formed. It raises the question, did Tupac truly die from the shots in Las Vegas? Or because a system had trapped him and only his mother, who understood the system better than anyone, was capable of safely getting him out of that trap? From another perspective, if this action is pure maternal love, then it is an extreme sacrifice. The mother places her child's survival above the law, medicine, and all social norms. But if it was a heritage protection strategy, then this was a perfect calculation, where time, space, and emotion were measured so that Tupac would leave at the right time in the right way, in a way that only someone who understood him the deepest could do. Afeni's actions are even more remarkable, considering the complex relationship between Tupac and the outside world. When a symbol's influence extends far beyond music, every word, every action, and every death can be transformed into a political or commercial tool. Helping Tupac escape the trap, even through death, was a move that was both full of maternal love and power, where mother and son collaborated to protect the soul, reputation, and legacy from external manipulation. More than just a story, more than just a rumor, the mercy theory is based on an analysis of behavior, historical context, and family relationships. It places Afeni's actions within a larger picture, a system of symbolic persecution, a mother who understands the machinations, and a son who has already foreseen the limits of life. In that moment, the hospital was no longer a place of healing, but the final stage where decisions were made with an eerie silence and subtlety. And finally, this theory emphasizes a frightening but logical point. If you die from the system trap, the person who helps you out of the trap also holds the key. Afeni Shakur in her final act could be both a loving mother and the ultimate gatekeeper for Tupac's legacy. Every action from requesting no resuscitation to deciding to cremate the body that night can be explained as a calculated step, a dual solution protecting her son from pain and protecting Tupac from the manipulation of the outside world. When placed in that context, the final moment in the hospital is no longer mere death. It became a delicate play where Tupac and his mother silently agreed, where power, love, and strategy converged. And if this hypothesis is correct, then the only person holding the key to death and freedom after death is Afeni Shakur. In Tupac's world where music, politics, and violence intertwined, mercy theory was no coincidence. It is the final unknown, an act the world has never seen, but may have been calculated in advance in silence and love, or in absolute power and control. 5. Empty evidence and unanswered questions. More than 2 decades later, the death of Tupac Shakur remains a major crack in the history of American music and justice. What's shocking isn't just that he left too soon. It's that for over 25 years, no one has taken responsibility. Witnesses who were near the scene have mysteriously disappeared. Surveillance cameras, which could have captured every detail, have been obscured or are no longer mentioned in public records. The white Cadillac, the vehicle believed to have carried the assassin, remains a mystery. More than 20 years later, those details still remain obscure, making every hypothesis a game of imagination. A big question arises when millions know Tupac's name when he has become a global icon. Why is there no confession, no declaration, no evidence from live witnesses, no one taking responsibility? All these gaps are not just investigative loopholes. They are a reminder that there are forces that want to keep the truth buried under a layer of silent dust. From a legal perspective, it's almost impossible for a murder case with numerous witnesses and cameras to not result in a prison sentence. But Tupac is an exception. Even criminal experts have to admit the disappearance of key witnesses, evidence, and exhibits is not a normal phenomenon. It could reflect the information control of some powerful force. The public is busy debating, was Tupac a victim of street gangs or a political pawn deliberately eliminated? From a cultural perspective, this emptiness caused Tupac to die twice. The first time was physical death. The second time was silence, mystery, and legal loopholes that made him an untouchable icon. He's not just a hip-hop star, he's a living legend in memory, but also an unanswered question. It was these very gaps that propelled his name beyond music, turning him into a story about power politics and how to control the truth. Tupac's family, especially his mother and father, also contributed to this mystery. Actions that were thought to be private became significant turning points. Afeni Shakur demanded cremation of the body that night with no autopsy and no independent investigation. Billy Garland, the biological father, was prevented from seeing his child one last time. Each decision that seemed protective actually pushed the case into the gray area between truth and doubt, turning the death into an unsolvable mystery. From a psychological perspective, this makes even more sense. When people face the brink of life and death, they often cherish their families, seek reconciliation, and resolve any misunderstandings, even if they previously committed serious sins. Tupac chose the final moments to clear away any sharp thorns, and his loved ones could understand that. Every action and decision that took place was not random, but a subtle consensus between Tupac's will and those around him. Putting it all together, the final image of Tupac becomes haunting ashes a big question mark, and the All Eyes on Me album spinning slowly. The disparate pieces, missing witnesses, obscured cameras, the white Cadillac still unfound, fit together in an eerie way. It not only raises questions about death, but also about the power that controls the narrative, about the gaps created by humans or influenced by unseen forces. From a sociological perspective, the silence of the public, the media, and the investigative agencies is not just an isolated phenomenon. It is a testament to a world where fame politics and music brands intertwine, creating a web that obscures the truth. Tupac was not only a victim of the bullet, he was also a victim of information gaps, of the narrative being controlled from both sides by the powerful and by his own family, who valued image and legacy over truth. Ultimately, the story still leaves a big question mark for the public. They could silence the man, but not the words of Tupac. 29 years later, that voice still resonates through every song, every unreleased rap, and every image in the memories of fans. And the truth, it might just be the beginning. If you want me to delve into FBI files or heritage funds, comment below.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.